1969. Was sent to Fort Campbell, Kentucky for boot camp. So I spent about 8-9 weeks there in boot camp in Fort Campbell in January. I mean, it was slushy and cold, 30s, but never got like it does here in Wisconsin. But it was still pretty nasty. But you endured, with everybody else that was there, and we were all recruits. We were all scared out of our wits, being in such a foreign environment, and then you have all these, at the time we didn't know who they were. They were sergeants, and they start screaming at you from the minute you get off the bus up until, well, they never stop screaming at you, come to think of it. So in November, I got my orders for Vietnam. They gave me, I think, about 30 days off to go home, take care of business, say, but good, enjoy myself, be with my family. I was scared the moment I landed in Vietnam. From Cam Ranh Bay on, I never stopped being scared. I was terrified because you're in a, it's surrealistic. So I meet friends with the guys, and you kind of have to prove yourself because you're a new guy, and you say, well, how is this person going to react in combat? He's a medic, and they need to trust a medic. They need to know that the guy can do what he is trained to do, and that when the shit hits the fan, he needs to, well, what's he going to do? Is he going to hide, or is he going to take care of us? When you first get there, you start knowing all these guys, and you become friends and buddies. You make a brotherhood. It's a brotherhood. You rely on them, they rely on you. So, what I did to protect myself is I kind of blocked the emotion off as far as feeling really, really bad about this person that I know that just got injured or hurt, shot or blown up, and not to get too emotionally involved with anybody because you would go crazy. They're talking about, you see all your buddies being wounded and killed, and you're treating them and you're trying to save their lives. And sometimes you can't, so how do you deal with that? Do you let it get to you, or do you just block it off? And for me, I just blocked that emotion off. Well, I had two real good friends of mine. One, with Tommy Turan, he was from Westland, Michigan, which is right across the lake here. And we got to be really good friends, so we got pretty close. And on May 6, 1970, he was one of the guys. He was about 20 yards away from me. He was positioned in a bunker. And I was in one bunker, and it's a perimeter around a mountain top that we had been assigned to secure an artillery base on a mountaintop near the Quang Tri province, which is about 30 miles from the DMZ, in what they call the A Shaw Valley. I looked at my watch, and it was 5 a.m. Exactly, and all of a sudden an explosion goes off, and then more explosions go off, and then the shooting starts, and then I'm shooting, my buddies are shooting, I'm in my bunker, and I look to the right, and Tommy Turan is over in the next bunker, and he's shooting, and we're fighting for our lives. We got hit with a battalion-size North Vietnamese army. These guys are regular army. They have lots of training like we had. And they were breaching the wire, and they were coming up to the breach. And I could see Tommy, he got out of his bunker and he started moving forward to get a better shots to stop that breach that was coming up. And I remember he got hit once, but he got up and he kept moving forward and shooting some more. And then there was more explosions, more smoke, more chaos. And that's about 3 or 4 hours, that battle. And then once the smoke cleared and everything got quiet, and we went around treating the wounded, and 33 Americans were killed that morning. 33 Americans were killed. So we went around, like I said, treating the wounded, taking care of the dead, praying over the dead, and We were all in shock. Then we went around looking, you still look for more wounded, more dead, and no Tommy. Couldn't find Tommy Turan. I remember seeing him, moving forward. So we looked all day, all that morning, all that afternoon, and still nothing. They looked under everything. We could look under sandbags, dirt, in bunkers, all into the jungle. And we sent teams into the jungle, but they were being ambushed because the enemy was still there. So they couldn't really do a good search for Tommy. But they did for that all day. The next day, for about 3-4 days, and then for about a week, they sent out teams looking for his remains. Same day or same morning that we lost Tommy, I was wounded. I got shot, grazed left side of my head. It grazed it severed an artery, but I was smart enough at being a medic, knew how to stop the bleeding. I had run out of trauma dressings and bandages because there was so many wounded that morning. But what I was smart enough I had my T-shirt, and I just ripped a piece of my T-shirt and put it into a little ball, and I pushed it into the hole and stopped the bleeding. And then I took another long strip and then just tied a band and real tight to keep the blood from squirting out, because I lost a lot of blood, didn't realize how much blood I lost. But I was transferred to, it was interesting because the hospitals were so full that day. There was just so much going on, not only with us, but with other fire bases around in other areas around Vietnam. They were taking a lot of wounded, American wounded. So they sent me to an Army Marine hospital. And that's where I recovered. I spent a couple of weeks in recovery at a Marine in Da Nang, a Marine Navy hospital there, and they treated me pretty well. And
when you got hit and you did your little
right.
makeshift, did you then keep treating other?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because I felt okay. I mean, I wasn't passing out. I did, later on, as as the hours went by, then I started getting weaker and weaker. But I kept treating. I mean, these are the people I know. These are my buddies, and I wasn't going to let that stop me. I think about it now, and I was like, man, he was right there. Where is he? What happened to him? Yeah, so he was listed in missing in action. His parents, never knew anything until around 1993. A farmer was digging around in that, we've been gone now. We left Vietnam in '75. All the troops were gone. So in '93, a farmer was digging around trying to plant whatever he was planting, and came upon some remains. And he was smart enough to report it to his higher-ups, to the village president, whoever it was, the village leader, our elder. And, they contacted the government, and there's a coalition between the Vietnamese government and the U.S. government. If they find any remains, they have to investigate and search. So that's what they did, and they did find some remains. And then those remains were sent to Hawaii. There's a research center there in Hawaii that does all this. They do a DNA testing, and they keep remains from all wars. And so in '93, they found the remains, and then they had to do more testing, and I guess the remains weren't enough to really have a conclusion, and then they went to the parents and got some DNA samples from them and I think his sister. And then they went through that process. So finally, they said, yeah, we found some teeth and some other samples, just a handful of Tommy Turan was left. And they determined that it was from his remains was Tommy Turan. And so he was buried, finally, brought back, repatriated to the U.S. And in April 19th, 2002, he was buried with full military honors at Arlington, Virginia, Arlington Cemetery, National Cemetery. And I went to visit him. And I visit him at least once a year, in Memorial Day or Veterans Day. He's buried right there. So, It's good that he finally made it home. I feel very fortunate coming back, you know, and because I saw a lot of my buddies did not. You know, that May 6th, 33 Americans were killed, and that was just that day. And I saw a lot of death over there, and I come back and I think to myself, man, George, you're very fortunate. You're back home with your mother and father, your sisters and brothers, and you're sitting at the dining table having Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner with my family. And there's other families that don't have that opportunity.